9:30 bell, I'm already dialed. Sweep the highs, watch it fail, fade the trap. Dow trader, I just read the map. Two trees, flat by lunch, never miss the rail.
Wednesday, June 3rd, and there was a theme that we saw across basically all the Mag 7s today and many other names. And you should hopefully already be aware of this theme of what happened today. But what we saw over and over on so many charts today was failed breakouts at the highs. I would consider that a warning sign. We had negative breadth all day today too. So we're looking at this Apple chart. Very nice move yesterday, day before, flag, all that cool stuff, right? Today attempts to make the breakout over this, high right here. Totally fails the breakout. Bam, other end of the range. Okay, let's move forward. Microsoft, what do you see here? One big failed breakout over the last 3 days. NVIDIA, what do we see here? Failed breakout. Let's move. I'm trying to think of more Mag 7s here. Tesla, failed breakout. Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Google. We could call Google a failed breakout. I mean, really, over the last 1, 2, 3 days, it has been a failed breakout from this flag, but it's more of an expected pullback on this one, in my opinion. But we could call it a failed breakout. Amazon failed below the double top, right? Inbis failed breakout up at the highs up there. Pullback is totally fine on Inbis though. Still looks like it's in play. We'll go through more charts here in a minute, but the point is seeing failed breakouts everywhere. All that said, look at SPY. Was a red day, but nothing significant. QQQ. Red day, nothing significant. Incremental higher lows. Signs that things are slowing down. We're stair-stepping in the upward direction. The more that we get incremental highs like this, higher probability that we get a liquidation break on it. So I think the overall point of what's going on in the market right now is we're being held up by semiconductors. Let's face it. MU, AMD, that's what's holding us up. And also, let's point out Meta is also a failed breakout, but it's the only Mag 7 chart that I can think of off my head at the moment that even looks okay after today. So, didn't break down to the gap below. Did fail to break out, but now we've recovered really over the high of the prior bounce range. So I don't know. It almost looks slightly bullish. We'll get to that in a moment though. We'll start off looking at SPY charts. I view today basically a digestion day. There was some down movement on many charts. But when it comes to the broad market, SPY, QQQ, whatever, nothing really significant happened in terms of price action. I think digestion is totally fine. We can't go straight up forever. We're really only a couple dollars and just nothing away from all-time highs. So I don't think there's any big concern. I don't want to, overblow anything until it does happen. But going into tomorrow, possible paths for SPY. Pullbacks to 751.75 are somewhat interesting. Can 751.75 step up as some type of support for higher low? That becomes the question. That's going to depend on semiconductor continuation and what continues to happen with these Mag 7 charts as well. Um, but paying attention to SMH probably pretty important right now. If we go over and we look at like the different sectors, I think it's super important to be watching the markets right now for rotation. So if we look at the sectors change today, software, we saw quite a big sell-off in software and some rotation into semiconductors, energy, XLV, XLRE, everything else was red. So, I mean, always want to watch these, especially right now when the market's really just being held up by semiconductors and maybe financials to an extent. Um, if all these turn red, I think that we could get a pretty significant pullback when any day that rotation stops happening. Okay. So that's why I think it's important to watch that. So this would be the ideal continuation move on SPY. I do see a world where we just continue to consolidate and there isn't much to do here. We just chop around, in this range. So pretty much, I think the only trade I would be interested in if I was going to trade SPY or the ES would be a pullback to 751.75, see if buyers pick it up there. And I'll add that buyers picking it up there, I also want to see uh, green market internals. I want to see green sectors over here. I want to see maybe some consolidation or some moves to the upside on some of the mags for me to attempt this. Otherwise, if I have red market internals and even if I do get a setup on this level, may not be worth trying to take. Might just chop around. Moving over to the QQQ chart, I think it's fair with QQQ to call this a failed breakout. We attempted a breakout over the all-time high, which is basically the high of the last 2 days. Failed to accelerate above it. Now we're back below in the range below. So I'm probably not interested in something like this. Could it work? Sure, it could work. I think the fact that we're getting incremental higher highs day after day, we're just seeing less and less juice. And now add in all the failed breakouts on all these mags and other names. It's not just mag sevens. It's a lot of charts. Okay. And I become less interested in trying to take breakout trades to the upside right now with that going on. Much less likely for them to work. So what would I rather see? I would rather see, can we break back down below 741.23? Some consolidation here. At that point, we kind of have sort of a head and shoulder type thing going on if that happens, right? And then once that happens, can we get a lower high below 735.14? Work our way down to close this small gap below us. That's the trade I'm interested in. More than anything, once we get there, that is certainly the ideal place on the daily chart to catch a higher low. So we would look for the gap fill and then the gap fill reversal back to the long side, and we'd come back up targeting this 735.15 level again. So absolutely the trade I'm interested in on QQQ. If I were to take a trade, I hardly ever trade SPY, QQQ, NQ, ES, but always looking at them because they are very important. So, I mean, yeah, we've got the failed breakout. So is this enough to start a pullback? I say hopefully so. That's what we need in order to get better trades in this market. We need a pullback. It's time. We need it. You can also just kind of watch this trend line, and then still the same thing, break the trend line, consolidation, lower high, another lower high, fill the gap, gap fill reversal, go back long, 735.15. And then what happens back up here? This would be the neckline, Do we come back down or do we recover it and go back to all-time highs and continue this rally? So this is all theoretical, but if that happens, that's what I'm interested in. Not interested in trying to take breakout trades. After today, we were given signs today. Trying to take breakouts probably not a good idea, unless it's like SanDisk or MU, something like that. But I think even TSM, I believe, had a failed breakout today as well. We'll look at that real quick. Yes, it did. Failed breakout. Oh, and I see this is not a bad trade look right here. So we'll just go right to it. Didn't even have this on mine, but look at this level right here, 435.95. So also this kind of looks like a Head and Shoulders. So two things I would watch for here. One, a little lower high below this level for a quick retrace to at least 427.50. Otherwise, if this for some reason fails and we get a little liquidation break, higher low, back above 435.95, attempt for equal highs, turn this into a bounce range. So that'd be the two trade ideas with TSM. What I would not attempt to trade would be a breakout to the upside. Apple, after this failed breakout, rotating back through the top of this flag or bounce range. I wonder, can we get something like this? A little more consolidation right here. Then a lower high below 308.50 might be good for a short back to this previous all-time high down here of 303.25. And then do buyers step it up and support 303.25 with the 20 SMA coming in as well. So that was my initial thought when we were like right here, could we pull back to this level? But instead it stepped up, looked like we did a higher low right there, made new highs, but failed to continue with the new all-time highs there. So just to go over it one more time, we're basically looking for a little more consolidation right here, lower high below 308.50, and I target 303.25 with, like today we had red market internals most of the day. We had red breadth. At close today, you can see the S&P had 1.93 sellers versus to one buyer, 3 on the Russell, 3.05 sellers to 1 buyer. Okay, so that's up in the left of my screen here. This indicator, it's just showing the current breadth of the different markets there. So with negative breadth, with negative market internals, ADD, VOLD, just all the different market internals, I would be looking if a clear lower high pop below 308.50 and a good clean setup that I can manage my risk on, I would be willing to short that down to 303.25. And while I'm sitting here discussing these indicators that I use for market internals, if anybody watching this would like these indicators, they are custom made. I've custom made them. They only work on Thinkorswim. I think I do have some custom ones for TradingView, but at least for breadth, I think I do. I have to look around. But if you want the indicators, I'd be willing to share the indicators with anyone. Just leave a comment asking for them, and I'd be willing to share that. And a brief explanation of how they work and how to read them as well. If you remember yesterday when we were talking about Microsoft and the failed breakout and the loss of the 200 SMA, um, we wanted to see what would happen when we got back to 430, 50 or whatever, 430, and if it would support that. I mean, as of today, we've closed below that level. We did close this gap, we closed below the level. So at this point, the question becomes, I mean, it's basically a look above and fail on a bounce range. So what am I looking for now? Something like this. Let me redraw that because the pencil really crazy there. All right. Something like this. Gonna push back up to this 430 level that rejects. And then do we rotate back down to 412? Would be my next target, which if not even losing 412 and going all the way back down to 401, but we'll go one level at a time. I think my next target down, something like this. If I can catch a setup off that 430 level between 429.50 and 430.50, if I can catch some type of short setup there, some type of lower high there, I would probably be interested in taking it to 412. I do have one concern with this trade, and that's just that the daily 20 SMA is kind of right in the middle here. So if I do take that trade, I want to be certainly conscious of that. But I do like that the last time we rotated through here, it left thin structure. So other than that 20 SMA should be an easy ride down if we can catch the setup. The only other thing that I could see happening, pop back down and then come back up. I mean, could that happen? Yeah. Probably not my base case, but if I see it happening, yeah, I don't know that I would take the trade. It would just depend on conditions and circumstances when it happened. If you remember yesterday's video, we talked about Amazon and the inverted hammer below this double top and the short setup. I think that was the best trade of the day today, without a doubt. So I think it played out pretty perfectly as called out in last night's video. Let's just go check it out. Basically said lower high below 254.85. We kind of got this flat area. Then we got this inverted hammer candle right on the level, right off VWAP. I took the short at the low of that inverted hammer candle. And it went all the way down to the next level and more. So I think that worked really well. Going forward on Amazon. And I just updated the levels on Amazon. So if you're following along, I would take note. Just updated them, cleaned them up here. So here's what I'm looking for essentially. A look below and fail or a rejection of 247. So these levels right here, can something step up and stop these sellers right here, at least temporarily, push us back to 255. That's the actual neckline, that's the actual low of this double top and these prior flat highs. So that is what I want to see. And then from there, you know, does it reject and come back down? Or is this a failed breakdown, a liquidation break or something, and we get a good higher low and go all the way back up, you know? That's the bullish case, the extremely bullish case, and this is the bearish case. So rejection or look below and fail 247 could be a tradable event. Intel opened gapped up above the 114 level today, tried to hold it, did hold on for a while, essentially ended up rejecting the daily 20 SMA. So going into tomorrow, if I can catch a tight enough short on like a 2-minute time frame or something, and risk is looking okay on the candle setup that I get, I might attempt a short to close the rest of this gap right here. Once the gap is closed, you know, can we get a gap fill reversal and a move back over or back up to the 114 level? Be looking for something like that. This here is the MAGS chart, ticker MAGS, and all that is just the MAG 7s, but very critical that we look at this because we clearly have a double top on the MAGS chart here. That presents a threat to the market, especially if semiconductors decide to pull back, you know, so going to be watching this for any lower highs below this neckline for some further downside potential in the MAG 7 names. Probably a chart put on watch with this 6850 level on watch. What happens below that level? You know, always want to keep in mind that we can get a look below and fail and come back up. Seen it happen many times. Just kind of like a trap. But if you look at the Amazon chart, well, we already have the lower high below the neckline and a good move down. So things to have in the back of your mind. Then here we have the SMH chart, which is a semiconductor index. Anything bearish to say about this chart? Not even a little. Nothing but parabolic. So it does seem that the market, it only cares about AI, data centers, and space stuff right now. If it's not that, then it's junk. Look at Netflix. Like, wow. Just sold to the ground here. Look at your Coinbase, anything Bitcoin related. Just look at Bitcoin, like to the floor, to the floor. Totally bearish, totally whatever, you know. What about Robinhood? Robinhood is actually kind of interesting here. It might have just been a shiny object for a couple days, which is totally fine. I made a good chunk on this Robinhood trade. But when we get back to $80, $81, what happens here? This is a clear level. Can we get a higher low off that level? I think that's interesting to be something to be watching out for. Or does it just turn into a failed breakout? Because, you know, we know that Robinhood relies so much on Bitcoin value, so this could turn into a failed breakout. And if we do get a lower high below $81, well, then the target becomes the other end of the bounce range, right? Of course it does. That was a really bad arrow, but you know, something like that, or probably this 7650 level, then the 7360 level. So Robinhood might be have some decent trades coming in to its nearby realm to be watching out for. I do hold quite a bit of Robinhood long term, so I hope this is just a failed breakdown, and we just do that, but I don't think that's the base case at all. CrowdStrike had earnings after close today. Been kind of waiting for a pullback to these previous highs. See if I could catch some kind of long on CrowdStrike. Wouldn't you know it that if we look at the extended hour session, had a, I don't know if it was an earnings miss. I haven't even looked to see what happened with earnings yet, but I know that it's gapped down from earnings just below this level. And I'm not saying if it did miss earnings or earnings is super bad that we should just run in and buy it. But on a technical setup, I want to see if I can catch some kind of risk adverse long off of this level. So I might, let the dust settle in the morning and see what happens with CrowdStrike, see if there's somewhere I can catch a long on this thing. That is all I've got for tonight. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment, do all that fun stuff.
Yeah. That's the setup, that's the play, that's the plan. Log the trade, close the app, wash my hands. No revenge, no chase, no holding the loss. Dow trader, disciplines the boss. You saw the level, you saw the sweep, now you know. Patience over prediction, that's the dough. Trader, smash that subscribe. I'll be back at the open, watch the next one ride. Blend a trade, trade a blend. See you at the bell.